bringing you inside the USL Championship and League One.
Segmer's got there, Marquinhos! He's been knocking on the door! He knocks it down!
Diving into all the biggest stories and top headlines.
You are ripping and roaring today.
This is USL All Access.
It's almost impossible to recreate that level of magic.
With Mike Watts and Devon Kerr on Sirius XM FC.
Welcome, everybody, to a new edition of USL All Access on this Tuesday evening. Match day 1 is in the rear view. We look ahead to week 2. The Oakland Roots head coach in his first season, former Loudoun coach Ryan Martin, is back. I think he's nearing a 5-timers jacket. We will briefly chat about the CBA. And we will talk about some of the great matches that we saw week 1, including the Commonwealth Cup. Devon, that's not a 5-timers jacket that you're wearing. It's probably like a 150-timers jacket that you've worn, 1,500?
Probably more than that. It's one of my favorite jackets ever for everybody at home. This is a 1993, wait for it, pure windbreaker warm-up jacket. Now, it's relevant.
Still fits.
Obviously, it still fits, Mike. I may not look like I'm in playing condition, but, you know.
Nothing that I bought in 1993 still fits.
You want to see a real skater's body? In 1993, you weren't even alive.
I was alive. I had just become alive. None of it fits.
Sorry, I thought you were born in 94. 93,
no.
I mean, who knew? You know? Who knew your birth journey was going to make it onto today's show? This jacket in 1993, it was when I officially moved to South Florida. I actually stole one as a ball boy, which then followed me from the sidelines of my brother's high school into ball boying for the Miami Fusion, RIP. Did venture into some experiences with the Fort Lauderdale Strikers, also rest in peace. And it eventually made its way back into the locker at said high school, albeit it was mine. So it's my brother's warm-up that then became mine long-term. Umbro, still the greatest gear ever. Umbro Speciales, my favorite cleats that I ever wore, although I was more of a Nike Legend guy at the latter portion of my career. Shout out. We need to come up with something for people, much like SNL, who do hit the 5-timers. I don't think it should be a jacket, though. Box.
I mean, they aren't Brinks tires that we're sending, but, we could use a former sponsor.
Thanks for coming on another show. Here's a set of white walls.
Yeah, we need to work on this. I once went on a podcast where I got sent like a theatric release poster and a beer stein that was actually kind of legit, but the logo was just too significant. Like I couldn't bring that out at a party.
Dude, I love that. Beer stein?
Yeah. So maybe we do something like that. It's like the trophy that you wish you didn't get kind of thing.
I would seek out a beer stein. We digress. Let's go.
Okay. All right, Ryan. Next time. Ryan. Sorry. All right. Let's
as is our Jaeger bottle.
I swear to God, we're going to get here. Let's chat about a handful of things. In terms of players coming into the league, I called 2 games this weekend, and in both instances, the number of times I heard that guy was out for 4 weeks of preseason, that guy is still getting his visa done. Oh. We're hoping that the ITC comes through on this player by Friday night so that we can play him week 1. This guy was unsigned until this week, but on trial, so sorry that we never told you that he existed. This guy was looking at other options and was training with us and will stay with us for the foreseeable future. Heard all of it. That's the nature of the championship every single year. So the signings primarily are sort of done by now, and they're trying to inch a couple over the line. That's usually where we're at after week 1. Dev, couple of guys that you wanted to make mention of here at the outset?
And mind you, by the way, we just heard it from Mark Anthony Kay as well, who spent the entire preseason with San Jose, and this is the route that he decided to take. So we are going to have these conversations for the next 2 or 3 weeks, especially on the injury side, which frustrates me for so many of these teams. And then it's gonna open itself back up when the next window opens come fall time and guys want to bolster their roster. So last week we reported that Sebastian Lleget, news had come out that he was involved in discussions with Monterey Bay. The verbiage now has changed. And while certainly the news is a little bit old, it's important to still report and talk about that it is now in advanced talks for a contract, Mike, but also that ownership, some sort of ownership deal for Sebastian Lleget would be involved, and his wife, Becky G. Singer, I didn't even know they were still together, by the way, so shout out to them, that she is exploring a relationship on both the men's and women's side. Reasons that it matters to me personally, and why it should matter to you in the league. The optics of it. A player who still has plenty to give in his career. Sebastian Lleget, good midfielder. You can work him into the 10, plays that 8 pivot, outside, inside, etc. But he's not a depth piece. He's a starter in the championship, could easily be on an MLS roster. And how that's going to turn people's eyes, like Memo Rodriguez, like Mark Anthony Kaye. Some of this content is repetitive in nature, but it is worth repeating because, again, you're just 2 years away, Mike, from USL Premier, the first division that will be included into the pyramid of this country, and promotion and relegation. They continue to stockpile, you turn it. And the financial side, where you have players who are being a lot smarter with their money. Now, I recognize that not every single player, especially those at the championship level, are going to have the ability to get into an ownership situation. But it's smart business. You recognize growth for a player that has spent the majority of his career outside of the United States and in Major League Soccer, saying, hey, I don't have to be within the MLS hemisphere in order to see the same sort of gains. I think it's a really smart decision if it ends up getting over the line by Sebastian Lleget.
And then another guy who I know you and I are familiar with from the MLS ranks previously, Niko Hämäläinen, is a guy that looks like he's headed to New Mexico.
I remember him because, he actually grew up in my backyard. He was a guy from South Florida, spent some time in a couple of different pathways. Always heard his name bouncing around. Saw him train a couple of times. But he ended up at Dallas, and he left the FC Dallas Academy to go to QPR. That's an unreal team in England, right? You're talking about former Premiership team, Championship, et cetera, et cetera. It makes its way up and down the ranks in English football. But his first team deal over 9 years only produced 33 appearances. So he spent the majority of that contract on loan. You mentioned Major League Soccer. There was an LAFC stint. We saw him with the Galaxy, Dagenham Rebbage, Kilmarnock in Scotland. He's got plenty of experience in terms of locations and a world traveler. Spent the last couple of seasons between Finland and Norway. The problem is, for me, is while he's got 134 appearances to his name and about a 10-year pro career, you do the math, you're talking about 10 appearances in a year. He hasn't played 90 minutes in a league game since September of last season. Now the health and fitness starts to come into it. You just referenced it. He played 120 minutes in a cup game back in September, but you're talking 7 months almost. So this is a great addition at the left back spot for New Mexico United. I love his ability to shape balls coming off the back line. He's got plenty of speed, decent distribution, but great vision to be able to link up with the midfield and the front line. But it's going to take some time for New Mexico United to take advantage of that. Even if he's been in camp, the announcement coming now, probably a good idea that a visa conversation is coming in, Mike, and that they're going to have to get him up to speed. So similar conversation to Lleget and some of the other players you alluded to. Good job to bolster, but still a long way from a finished product.
All right, so those a couple players that are set to either potentially join the ranks or maybe even jump into some ownership. All right, it is approximately 10:29 a.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday, March 10th, that we're recording this. There is no CBA yet between the players and the league. We have taken the stance and will largely continue to take the stance that we do know info on both sides, and as a matter of trust with those who told it to us, cannot necessarily dig into the whole thing. That said, what happened last week, players across all 12 games paused for the opening minute, would touch the ball into play, and then stand in formation over the course of the following 60 seconds. We certainly heard the fans have reaction to that silent protest on the field. But as of right now, negotiation, to our understanding, continues without a deal. Devin, I know you wanted to get a comment in here.
I share the frustration for the fans, but I would like to go back to the black and white nature of which we've kept that the entirety of the time, Mike, and that we need to report on facts. And there aren't a lot out there. What you see being reported, A, take with a grain of salt. B, that's what those organizations, the USLPA and USLHQ, the front office, have decided to share. Now, I would say a couple of things. One, it's not our job to report on speculation, okay? We are a vessel as broadcasters to teach you the analytics, to talk about stories, and things that are factual in nature, okay? There's a lot going on behind the scenes that people don't know about. I like ideas from both sides. I disagree with ideas from both sides. But not all of those ideas are concrete in nature, which is why we don't talk about them. And it's not my job, nor is it Mike's or any other announcer involved in this situation to tell you about it. Do I think there's an area for that? Absolutely. We are just not in that position. A lot of things there, the cases, they're not unilateral, okay? Have patience. I share your frustration. I want this to get done. I want it to get done sooner than you can ever imagine. And I would love to be involved to a point where we could once be able to tell you that. We're not there right now. We're going to stay on the black and white facts that we know, and that's it. Okay?
Yep.
Everybody keep their fingers crossed, and let's move forward positively.
Yep. All right. When we come back, there were games this weekend, 89 minutes apiece. We'll walk you through some of the key matchups from around match day 1 of the championship, and a little bit later, we've got Ryan Martin, the head coach from Oakland, joining us here on Sirius XM FC. Don't go anywhere. This is USL All Access.
Let's get back to USL All Access on Sirius XM FC with Mike Watts and Devon Kerr.
Welcome back, everybody. It's USL All Access on this Tuesday evening. If you miss any part of the show, it's available on the Sirius XM app or the USL YouTube page. Let's chat about games around match day 1, and there were a couple right off the bat where you went, wow, they really swung for the fences on opening day. Dev, I know you and I both saw Louisville-Lexington as the opening match on a Friday night, nearly 9,000 in attendance, and went, all right, here we
Hell
go.
Yeah.
It finishes 2-1 to Louisville. Aiden McFadden, the masked man, broken nose on Thursday, comes in off the bench, scores in the 85th minute. After Donovan stings the keeper's palms, he's there for the rebound. It looks like Philip Goodrum is able to set up an equalizer. Handball wipes it out in the 87th, and it finishes 2-1 in favor of Louisville City. Couple things as we go into this. I called the game. I know you were watching the game live and have given it more attention afterward. Mac Hemme, in talking to him, enjoyed chatting with the new Lexington head coach. He was quick to point out, starting with a rivalry match. And as you'll hear coaches say when they're on the wrong end of a rivalry match historically, even though he wasn't the coach of Lexington when it happened, you have to win a game to call it a rivalry. And they are now 0-4-0 all-time against their Commonwealth Cup foe. In terms of the goalkeeping situation, I know you'll touch on it. Hugo Farreau had off-season surgery, so it came down to Danny Fondes or Ryan Troutman. Troutman wins the job for opening day. In speaking with Danny Cruz, first thing he said is, you know me, if one guy trains better, performs better, he's going to get the job, and it's going to come down to training, performance, and character in the goalkeeping position moving forward, trying to replace Damian Loss. In terms of the number 9 position for Louisville, Donovan was coming off an injury, the Philadelphia Union signee. How that position moves forward, I think it'll be pretty open competition is what it looks like. I also would say that Brandon Days, at the age of 16, garnering the start in the center of a back three. Wild. Not the least of which because of who it threw to the bench, Josh Jones, who was unbelievable at the end of last season, unseated Arturo Rodriguez and never dropped
right
out.
Now, though. One-handed right now.
But, it's soccer. Philip Goodrum at this point wishes he was playing one-handed.
Sure.
with the handball. But yeah, so, Days getting that start was only his 3rd championship start, and there were moments where the back line not knowing exactly the tactics and seeing what we saw, that it felt helter-skelter amongst that back three on opening day, something that I don't know will continue. But Marcus Epps had one too many openings where I went, Rutrow in transition, something they can work on moving forward. Dev, your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, backline blues for both, recognizing availability of players, health overall, which is included in that, and also it's the first game of the year. So it's not going to be an overreaction in the situation, but way too much space conceded. The opening goal for Lexington, great finish by Aaron Malloy. That starts on the other side. This is where, as a broadcaster and analyst, Mike, it really sucks. And I say that because I'm not there on site, and the camera angle that you and I were both privy to, you calling the game, me watching from afar, I couldn't see the mark that Kyle Adams was checking into. So I'm not going to crucify him for the space that he vacates in behind him, which makes the whole back line have this waterfall effect chasing. But there were too many situations as such. Interesting balance that will be for Lexington. Jacob Green, certainly over rotation on the right. Didn't get as much from Hafferty at the left back position. So I want to see more growth there. Obviously, there's going to be plenty of time. I'm curious with the goalkeeper spot where they go here. Hugo Farreau, the injury in the offseason, which led to surgery. Is it going to be Ryan Troutman? I've seen him play well at the collegiate level. Certainly he had some good saves in this game. Farreau has to be the number one. I would be quick to remind everybody for Danny Fondes, although the backup and possibly the third, that this is a guy who helped a Louisville team that was battered and bruised and somehow limped their way into a final back in 2022. I say that as respectfully as possible because it's one of the better postseason performances by a team that I've seen. And he's got a better backline now. Now, I have my own issues with everybody's backline, and we can talk through that, but that was a point in time in 2022 where Danny was still rotating. Do I go 4? Do I go 3? I mean, that backline was spearheaded by Wes Sharpie controlling the 3. Wes was a great piece and certainly versatile, but probably not a first-choice selection center back, and I don't know if he would even get into this team right now for Louisville. So you've got a better back line, 3 capable goalkeepers. I was more interested on the other side of the ball, and I'll be quick here, the conversation for Lexington and how you get the best out of former Mac Herman winner, college soccer's version of the Heisman, and Michael Adedokun, and what you do with him on the outside. At his best, he's running at you in open space for sure, but the ability to challenge him one-on-one. This is not a guy who's going to be able to regularly put up 15-plus goals. If you look at the statistics at his collegiate career, he went 67, 18, and 21. Games, goals, assists. But out of those 39 goal contributions, 22 came in his senior year at Ohio State. And the reason being is he had a lot of supporting cast around him that had speed, that committed to the cause going forward. Didn't see enough of that in this game, and certainly going to be a major talking point for Mac, how to get the best out of Adedokun. He needs more players coming forward to work off of, not just him in transition, and certainly not the focal point up top in the 9. Saw it too frequently in this match.
All right, Dev, let's chat about another handful of games that occurred around the championship in match day 1. Hartford ruins Jacksonville's opening day, 10,000 in attendance. Augie Williams scored late in the first half. Cariaga, who missed really a significant part of last year and was believed to be Hartford's the 10 they were missing, ends up scoring. Obalola gets one late. Jacksonville 70% of the ball, which for Hartford is, as usual, no problem. San Antonio 2-1 win over Phoenix. Crinali ends up scoring the winner. There's a handball that set up J.P. Skeers for a penalty in the second half. Let's chat about Charleston-Pittsburgh in depth a little bit here. It's at Patriots Point. Reigning champion Pittsburgh going on the road. I'm just going to lead by quickly adding there's a reason teams like Hartford and Pittsburgh play south, whether they were wherever they finished is irrelevant. So Pittsburgh winning the championship in a lot of leagues, you'll see that team host opening day. It's cold in Pittsburgh. It's less cold in Charleston. Dev, let's start with Suber and the fact that he not only scored in this game, but positionally played differently, and Andy Cabrera got a goal as well.
So I have been told, by the way, that because his father is no longer in the league, that Andy Cabrera wants to be called Wima Cabrera Jr. again.
Whoa!
I just found that out last night. So that's a fun one. Yeah, Sean Suber, possible defender of the year last year. Certainly would have gotten my vote if I had one. Certainly if you had one. We don't talk about that. Awesome in the midfield. Statistically, not going to blow you away. I'll give a nod to another midfielder later on in this segment who was awesome statistically. His ground coverage, his tackles, his ability to move the game forward. Certainly the goal doesn't help. It's a different role, at least for now, than we saw of him controlling that back line for Pittsburgh. But he allowed the Charleston Battery to do so much. And with the absence of Aaron Malloy, again, for 90 minutes, filled the game and shoes quite well in the midfield. I thought the team was a little bit lopsided on the left-hand flank. Love what I saw from both Nathan Messer and Jeremy Kelly. Great relationship, the way that they worked forward, creating opportunities. But you could hear Ben Pierman on the sideline wanting more out of Wilmer Cabrera Jr. He wanted him to tuck in. Like old school tendencies tell you, balls on the far side of the field, you come in. It's a lot more difficult to be beat by a 10-yard ball in front of you than a 40-yard ball over his head. That happened, but also they lack the ability to combine, and that's something that we saw out of Marcanic, and certainly their wingers that we've seen over the past couple of years. So part of a growth pattern. Overall, Pittsburgh really struggled. I'd actually like to see how Rob Vincent tweaks with the midfield. I want him to switch Sam Bassett and Danny Griffin, play Griffin deeper, let him be the ball winner, and then push forward. Let Sam Bassett be a creator up high. He's got too much talent in the final third to not be involved in this attack.
Also, I saw a comment from YouTube a couple weeks ago. Was that enough talking about Pittsburgh? I know that our preview was a tad short, but we did speak to the head coach previewing the team and looking back on last year's championship for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Was that not? All right.
By the way,
let's chat about okay.
One more ad there since we're on it. I apologize.
Go for it.
I've said it the whole time, and I wish him nothing but success. Albert Dequa needs a meditation session. I did not see a single movement from him that seemed like there was growth over the past 2 years.
I'm not sure there was a lot of growth in Rhode Island for him individually. Birmingham, Tampa Bay, 1-0 in favor of the Rowdies. This game was in a weather delay for a while. Marco Micheletto in the 57th.
A lot of control here by the Rowdies. The Tyler Pasher conversation, playing him in a midfield three. I understand the explosions going forward. It's a defensive liability. Wonder if they would try and push him a little bit higher. Obviously, you need plenty of ground coverage in the middle. They didn't create a ton. Defensively, the back line looked scattered with all that control that the Rowdies had. I certainly didn't like the goal. Rowdies didn't create a ton. Second half of the game was much better. The weather didn't help. But if I see another defender turn their back, and this isn't just for the Rowdies and Birmingham game that led to the game winner. If I see another defender turn their back 15 yards from their own net, I'm going to vomit. That's all.
El Paso 2, Colorado Springs 2, entertaining game, which if there's one game you're going to look at and say crooked numbers both ways coming into the weekend, that was the one. Corey Bennett early, Isaiah Foster late, Rubio Rabin comes in from Charleston, scores twice for El Paso in the interim on either side of halftime. That finishes 2-2. Monterey and Oakland, we're going to chat with Ryan Martin about the Oakland side of it in a little bit. Mentions the Mark Fisher goal in the 85th that proves to be the winner. A handful of thoughts there?
Yeah. For Ryan Martin, he wants the ball. He wants to be able to control the game. Thought they did that, a lot of that in really good areas. Both teams were terrible attacking-wise in the first half. For Monterey, the tactical setup is an interesting one because Jordan Stewart and talked about it leading up to the season, very vocal, that they toyed with a 3 and a 4, saw that, a plethora of ideas, not very efficient in nature. Sitting in this 3 that was a very aggressive 5. I need a little bit more out of the center backs, staying locked into the midfield. When they went forward, certainly they did progress numbers. The problem was it was kind of wrong place, wrong time, and defensively, Oakland did a really good job of absorbing pressure. The final 15 minutes of the game was overserved. I love that. Just skip ahead to that. The two key questions that I have are, from Monterey, what they're going to do up high, understanding health also comes into it. Wes Lleget, I think he's grown a lot since college and certainly did under Ryan Martin. But since he's come to Monterey, he and Amari Glasgow, great speed coming forward, almost outran their coverage at times, and they lacked a central 9. That's something that they're going to have to figure out. And for Peter Wilson, I loved the outside backs for Oakland. They overindulged. They helped in possession, gave a lot of control to the midfield. Peter Wilson struggled to get on the same page as them. And so they didn't provide him a lot of opportunities. Third most tackles on the team. He's the only player in the top 5, by the way. And I'm talking about the out-and-out striker and Golden Boot winner, which is not a good one. He's the only player that wasn't a defender or holding midfielder. Tommy McCabe was incredible. 111 touches, 93 of 106 passing. That's 87.7%. Fifth best out of 30 players on the field. 38% of the balls might coming off of his foot. Forward-facing, moving this team going forward. Second most passes in the final third. Tied for the most crosses. The kid was everywhere. It was an incredible performance by their holding midfielder.
All right, a couple other results here to touch on. Liam McKinnon, who dealt with injury most of last year in Orange County, gets off the schneid early in the 22nd. Knight Pickering, I'm interested to see what he is now that he's with Devin Rensing. The best we've seen of him was probably right off the bat in Memphis. Sacramento 2, Tulsa 0. Kleeman and Edwards, the goal scorers there. I know you and I are excited to see Sacramento in the Open Cup here together next week. Brooklyn 1-0 over Indy. Look, I live just outside New York City. I lived in Queens for the better part of a decade. I lived in the Bronx for half a decade. Obregon scores a penalty. He's a New York City kid, played at Siena. That's really cool. Tommy Mack had the captain armband, gave it to Obregon, and then on and on it went. Brooklyn was extremely direct. If there's one thing Marlon LeBlanc said last week and carried into the pre-game call that I had with him, it's that you're going to know the identity and that you're going to see goals and that you're going to things are going to happen in Brooklyn games. They're not just going to settle in. Charlie Sharp had chances for Indy. Very easily could have buried a goal or two that would have made this a very different game. I'm also going to say, in some ways, I feel bad. Kane Rizvanovic, he's 18, debuts in the championship. UEFA Friendship Cup with the U.S., goes over and wins the final. Like, as a youth national teamer, he's one of the most highly celebrated goalkeeping prospects in the country. In the pros, on a field that small, there were 3 times he climbed and did not get the ball. You can't literally miss the ball. You have to get something if you're going to come, and you can't do it 3 times. Speaking of, Dick was great. And Indy just not nearly enough on the day. All right, when we come back, Ryan Martin, head coach for Oakland Roots, is joining us on the show. How he made the move, the players he took with him, the way he found his way through the coaching ranks from Wake all the way to an Oakland team that's got big expectations this year. It's next on USL All Access.
Giving insight to all the biggest moments in Championship and League One. This is USL All Access on Sirius XM FC with Mike Watts and Devon Kerr.
Welcome back, everybody. It's USL All Access on this Tuesday evening. We've been looking forward to talking to Ryan Martin ever since we heard he was going to take the Oakland job. You may remember him initially coming into USL through FC Cincinnati, takes the Loudoun United job after running in with the DC Academy for a while, and then ultimately gets them to the postseason last year. Plenty of turbulence along the way, and then at the conclusion of the season makes the leap to Oakland, and obviously off to a great start, as we mentioned earlier in the show. Ryan, Mike, and Devin, obviously, so happy to have you on again, and so happy to see you in a new role. That's a nice logo behind you.
Oh, great logo. Yeah, good colors, great jersey, Devin. So, no, I appreciate it and happy to be on the show and appreciate all you guys do for the league.
Want to open up with 2 questions. The first, I've asked you privately, but now I'm going to ask you publicly.
Oh, boy. We're recording.
Here I was in September going to San Francisco Airport 3 days before a Loudoun game. And what do I find but the VIP of the day at National Car Rental is one Ryan Martin. That's what it says on the board. Can you confirm that was or was not you?
Well, I'm a Hertz Gold guy, so it was not me. But there are a lot of Ryan Martins out there. I've learned throughout my journey.
Dude,
understood.
We were on the sniff of that. Watts called me, and I was like, dude, is that real?
What are the
Yeah,
odds?
I tell you, man, like, what are the odds? I'm like, bro, it's him.
Higher
It's
than you
me.
think.
It's 100%.
Yeah, Yeah, well now it maybe it was a sign.
It was. It was both literally, figuratively a sign.
Yeah.
Let's talk about game one, and we'll talk about sort of your journey to get here. But to open up against a local rival in Monterey Bay, to get the late goal that you did, how satisfying was that to kick off your first season in Oakland?
Yeah, for me, it was incredible, especially when the final whistle blew and I turned around and, Peter Wilson's the first one to hug me, and you could see the joy in his face, and, Tyler Gibson and Hackshaw and the fans, and what it meant to the club itself was a different level. And for me, obviously, we wanted to start off in a positive way, and we wanted to just focus on our performance and in the process of what we're trying to do. So we felt like we did a lot of things really well in the game anyway, and to cap it off with 3 points on the road was just great, and to see it in the people's face was just something I'll never forget.
Ryan, I've always been an admirer of where your career has gone, right? It's the college game and USL and academy and MLS, and it's front office, it's behind the scenes. But for me, I've always been taken back by your impact on progression of players from the youth level into the professional ranks. Can you maybe talk about the experience that you'd like to inject, where you feel like you've had the most success, especially in the Oakland area with the youth movement, and how you push that to another level?
Yeah, I think when, especially with this, it was kind of started when I was at Wake Forest with Jay Vidovich. Was we always believed that individual player development was the center of team development, and if you can help impact each individual first, it helps the team grow that much quicker. And our job was to always try to help guys become ready for the MLS draft. But in the process of doing it, like if you can make Chris Duval the best right back in college soccer, then it helps your team that much better. And then he becomes a pro. And, it goes on between Ike Opara, Sam Cronin's, Corbin Bones. The list that we had there was a different level. But I've kind of carried that through with wherever I've gone. And when I was at Loudoun, it was the same thing. It was how can I help each individual grow to become the best version of themselves? And that helps the team. And that's something I've brought here to the guys. And, it takes a lot of time because it takes building trust, and to build trust, it takes time. It takes relationships. It takes conversations. It takes, expectations and standards and what I expect of different players in different positions. And we're excited about some of the young guys here, whether it's, Ali, who's currently on the roster, or Bobosi, who I personally think will be one of the best center midfielders in the league after this year. We want to help develop young guys. And as you mentioned, the Bay Area is another hotbed of soccer, not dissimilar to where I was in DC with different qualities, but the difference right now is, the closest MLS clubs, an hour south. So we have a big window of where we can bring players in and help them become better. And, the club has a 510 club team is what we call it. And, David, who's the coach, does a great job, but it's all about bringing in local players that we can help promote to the first team. And so for us, it's a big opportunity that we want to really push forward here at the club.
Ryan, I was going to wait to ask this till the end of the show, but since you brought him up, and certainly I know from behind the scenes conversations what he means. Jay Vidovich, a living legend, especially at the collegiate ranks, what he did at Wake, what he continues to do at Pitt. Can you maybe describe how you ended up at that national powerhouse as one of his assistants and what he's meant to your coaching career?
Yeah, so it all kind of starts with my father, to be perfectly honest. My dad coached at Ohio Wesleyan, obviously, all-time winningest college soccer coach in history. One of his former players was Mr. Jay Vidovich at Ohio Wesleyan, and Jay ended up marrying my mother's sister. So, technically we're related, and he had
The family tree.
Family tree, yeah. So it started with my father, who's another obviously big mentor, and then I was looking to get into coaching, and they had a volunteer job down at Wake, and I took it, and so I lived in Jay's basement for about 5 months. And it's funny, like I remember, I still have a bunch of the books he gave me, but we'd run every morning at like 6 a.m. He'd knock on the door, we'd go for a run, and we'd recap books or videos that I watched. And it was a master class in coaching that I took away from Jay. And I learned how to help the individual grow. I learned, how to build a team, how to create a style and an identity, and to articulate it, which we're all, I'm still trying to get better at that part. But I learned so much from him. So for me, it's he's a tremendous mentor. And, even I celebrated New Year's with him and my father this year. And that was the start of our Bertine Jackson conversation.
Mhm. Ryan, I'd be remiss not to follow up on your dad, because I actually didn't know quite the lineage you have in your family. Didn't realize the extended family either. Ryan Martin, the head coach of Oakland, is with us. What's the biggest impact he had on you? Because you were at the best team in USL in Cincinnati as an assistant. You were at one of the best programs in college soccer at Wake. You were at a team that basically said your job is to develop multi-million-dollar talents, and if you win, that's nice, into a team that then expected you to win, whether you move talent on or not. Like, you've spanned the whole universe of being a manager. What did your dad teach you that allowed you to deal with those stops?
I think the first thing he taught me was to be an authentic leader. I think he always told me that when the biggest issue that leaders make when they get into a position of leadership is they change who they are to become a quote unquote leader, or what their picture of a leader is that they maybe read in a book or saw in a movie. And so it was to be true to who you are, which I think, was him throughout the course of his entire career. And I think the next one was how to build a program, which becomes a family environment where people year after year are proud to be a part of it. Which I always said when I was at Loudoun was, we always wanted it to be a great place for people to be from. So whether you're Kevin Paredes playing in the Bundesliga, when you look back at your time at Loudoun, that was a great place, a great stop in my journey that I'll forever be grateful for. And that was what we tried to make it. So those are probably two of the biggest things. And then he was kind of on the forefront of mental preparation for players, goal setting, in terms of that. He was doing it back in the 80s and 90s, kind of before it was was a thing. So when I have, between him and Jay at Pitt, two pretty good mentors that I rely quite heavily on. And, that tree actually started at Ohio Wesleyan between the two of them as well.
Ryan, on the individual side, you talk about the growth, for I think people at home will know it. Certainly managers and players know it. One thing they always say is you got to check your ego at the door, right? Because it's part of a group, a collective, but you do have to have an ego. I mean, it's very clear that to be a professional athlete, however big or little that is, you have to have a chip on your shoulder. You have to have an ego. You have to be able to push yourself and say at times, like, I am better than you, to help get you to the next level or to help push you to maybe catch up to everyone. Managers have egos too. Can you maybe describe what the balance is like of maneuvering individuals in the modern world of football and trying to figure out how to adequately handle all of the egos that are in front of you, but also you as a human, like, maybe pushing yours aside at times?
Yeah, I think there's a balance to it. I think ego is healthy. I think people give ego like a negative connotation where, oh, he's got a big ego. I think, like you said, everybody's got an ego, and I think ego is healthy in terms of how you can, how you operate in terms of whether it's leadership or your professional day to day. And I think, like Peter Wilson has an ego, but he's incredibly humble and receptive towards coaching and wants to become a better player. Tommy McCabe has an ego, but it's channeled towards how do I become a better player. So I think the first one is you always have to get to know the individual and who they are. And when they find out that you care about them and that you have respect for what they are and you want to make them a better player, it helps the process through the course of the journey, and it becomes a conversation. And for me, my job at the end of the day is to take all of the answers that we have in the room, whether it's from players or coaches, and make sure that at the end of it, we have the best collective solution to try to win the match. I don't have to have the answer and come up with the answer myself. I just have to put it together, and I have to make sure I'm surrounded by the right people. So whether it's Florian Velo giving me an idea and it works in terms of our build or final third product, or whether that becomes my assistant, Jeremy Clark, giving us an idea of how we want to press. It doesn't matter where the idea comes from. At the end of the day, it just has to get to where it is. And I think good leaders can understand that it's not about them, it's about the collective. And when you understand it's bigger than yourself, it's allowed me to at least be a better version of myself. I'm not coaching, and I didn't win 1-0 on Saturday night. Oakland Roots won 1-0. And, I'm pulling the ideas together from everyone, and I'm trying to make everybody a better version. I didn't put it in the top corner. Mark Fisher did. And, I'm proud of him and what he's doing. And that's my job as a leader and a coach, really. But yeah, I do have an ego, but it's a collective ego for the group.
My egoless co-host Mike Watts is going to allow me to step in front of him here on a follow-up. He started us to get you here at Monterey at Oakland on the 1-0 over Monterey. We talked about your past. Take us back 5 months. Can you talk about the personal decision and just getting from the East to the West? Certainly a large portion of your life has not only been spent on the East Coast, but surrounding what had been a great journey with DC United and Loudoun.
Yeah, it was a great journey and great people along the way that I met, and incredibly grateful for what has prepared me for now. I've taken a lot of lessons from it, but yeah, it was a big decision, because obviously my wife and I are both from the East Coast. I'm from Ohio, she's from Vermont. Both families still live there. And we have a 9-month-old son that was obviously part of the equation as well. But what really kind of skewed us was when I had a conversation with Barney, Lindsay, Nana, and Eric Yamamoto, and it was like, here's an opportunity to build something special. Here's an opportunity to take a club with an incredible foundation. And then later on, Dustin Cleaver joined, which was a tremendous hire. But it's a tremendous opportunity to build something from the ground up with the infrastructure that's the best training facility in the league, a historic stadium in the Oakland Coliseum, in a diehard sports town that's not dissimilar to like a Baltimore, and where you're going into it. And so when at the end of the day, when my wife sat down, it was, in a great location. It was a pretty easy decision, because it was an ambitious club, a club that wanted to build, a club that believed in my vision and how I wanted to do it, and was incredibly supportive with that. And here we are today in 70-degree weather and 3 grass fields and a NFL training center.
Not bad, not bad. Ryan Martin, Oakland head coach, joining us. Two-parter here. How quickly did it actually come together, taking the Oakland job? And then there was so much conjecture and so much flying around about what happened at the end of last year at Loudoun that was completely outside of your control. And I'm not going to ask you to dig into any of that unless you really want to.
I'll text you about it later, Ryan.
But what was the what's the meaning of the accomplishment that you guys did get over the line, did get to the playoffs, did as a group coalesce through all that?
Yeah, so everything came together for Oakland pretty quick. I had a couple other teams reach out, and I was seriously, considering some other ones, but Oakland was the place we wanted to be. And then, to be honest with you, we agreed, significantly earlier than everything got announced. After the season got finished and I was done, etc. Everything got done, but we were kind of waiting on a few different hurdles. But this was kind of the place for my family and I. In terms of last season, for me, it was a year in a lot of ways I'll never forget, for both the adversity and some of the stuff that we went through off the field, but more importantly on the field. It was an incredible collective group of people that had a goal, and it really started with Greg Baroni when he kind of came in as a majority owner, and we're still friends today. And Greg wanted to build a club with a larger purpose of being a part of something bigger than yourselves, and having a team that truly represented the community. And he wanted to have a group of selfless people that went after a goal, and the goal was to make the playoffs and make history for Loudoun for the first time. And so once we got over the line in Detroit last season, it was a incredible feeling, and the amount of people that put a lot of effort and time into it, the players and what they did was tremendous. And I can't speak highly enough, and can't be more proud of what the players went through and accomplished in the course of last season. It was truly a different level, and many years from now, I'll write a book and put some of what they went through in it. But I'm just incredibly proud and of them, and grateful that I had a chance to work with them.
Ryan, I'm curious on the build. You mentioned Eric Yamamoto, the vice president, obviously, for you guys. I'll get to Dustin Cleaver in a second. You're hired almost 5 months to the day. 5 months back to the day, I should say. You're hired, and then Dustin comes in roughly a month later. You as a manager come in. You have an idea of what the project is going to be. How did you, or what sort of timelines did you set? 1 month, 6 months, a year, and goals on what you wanted to accomplish? And how did that change in the overall build when Dustin came in?
It was interesting because Dustin actually is very aligned with myself and how we want to run the organization on the soccer side and the technical side, and Nana is a big part of it as well. And we want to have a soccer team that the city of Oakland can be proud of, but more importantly, we want to set up processes that are sustainable for the long term. We want to have player recruitment be as thorough as possible, which we accomplished this year. When you look at the amount of people we brought in and the quality people and the quality players we brought in, it was a lot of work. But for us, it was a process that's putting Oakland in a better position to move forward as a top club in this league. So when Dustin came in and I sat down with him, we were very aligned in how the staff would operate, the roles, responsibilities, the timelines, things would get done, how we wanted the club to operate, and then we kind of went forward from there. Every club is growing and trying to become a better version of itself, and we're no different. We're trying our best to become better, and there's issues every week that we deal with, and can we make ourselves better than we were last week? And I'm asking the players this week to be better than they were Saturday, and I'm doing the same with my staff and myself.
Love that. Well said. Speaking with Ryan Martin, Ryan, I hope I say this. Mike and I say this a couple of times this year. Head coach of Oakland Roots, currently sitting tied atop the Western Conference. That sounds nice, Ryan. I like that. Okay, the West
Good ring to it.
So far.
Good ring to it.
There you go. Ryan, I got a couple fan questions that were sent our way. Curiosity killed the cat. So they say Dan Poulter's got a good one. In terms of playing, what do you value and seek out in a goalkeeper during a recruitment process?
If you would have asked Hugo Farrell this question, he would have said to someone from France when he texted me last night. But no, what I value right now is someone who can make decisions consistently, and then good decisions consistently, someone who's brave in terms of the way they want to approach the game, and then I'd say someone that can affect the structure and the players around them to help us build and make the right decision to play out. Goalkeepers have a big influence, and I think you have to push them to make sure that's correct instead of saying, well, the center back's too high. Well, you can pull them deeper and you can push them wider and you can create the structure you're looking for. Can you just do it faster?
Well said. My son told me he wanted to play goalkeeper the other day, and I told him that was not going to
happen. Tell him no.
He's not crazy enough, to be fair. And I respect the goalkeeper brethren, but they got a different mindset. I don't know the person's real name. I know their handle. Who, what, when, where, why wants to know if the historic venue like the Coliseum had any impact on your decision to take the head coaching job.
The Coliseum, not a lot. The fans did. For me, this is one of the best fan groups in the league, and so for me, regardless of where they played in the past, whether it was Laney or other places, the fans were always incredible. And so for me, that's a big part of it. I met with the fan group last week, and they came to our game, and I haven't seen anything like that in terms of in this league. So we want the Coliseum to be rocking, and it's an awesome historic thing. But the fans are what make each club go, and so for me, the fans here were a big part of it.
Do you miss the guy who says, "Let's go Loudoun"?
I do. My old assistant Victor Longstock and I texted about that on Sunday night. He was like, I hope I get the "Let's Go Loudoun" guy right at the kickoff.
Dude, we talked about the change last week, and I said, listen, as long as they've got him in the stands, it'll feel like home, right? Regardless of what the leadership looks like.
When I think we go back in May or June, whenever I go back and I hear that, I'll have a big smile on my face right at the "Let's Go Loudoun" part.
Let's go Oakland.
Let's go Oakland. That's so good. Another one from Dan Poulter said, do you have a favorite new food place in Oakland?
Yeah, my wife and I found this place called Burma Superstar. Our equipment manager, Bobby, told me about this place in Alameda. It's less than 2 miles from our house, and it's incredible. So my parents are coming in for the opener, so we're going to take them on Friday night. Burma Superstar.
Burma Superstar. Love that. This is one of the better questions that I think we've ever gotten submitted for any of our guests. Ryan Kiefer says, Try and do it with a straight face. Given how many players you've signed from there over the years, do you think you should get a price break from Stanford when your son becomes old enough to attend?
That's pretty good from Ryan. I miss our conversations. Yeah, either Pittsburgh or Stanford, I should be getting some type of price break. And the way
Oh.
the tuition's going, you got to get me something here.
Vidovich has got to give you a full ride in ACC, man. Let
Oh,
it go.
I just hope well, regardless if he plays or not, he can go to a top university like either one. So
There you go.
Even if he's not playing soccer, he could still, I don't know, be on the crew team. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. All right.
That's perfect.
well, I think some people got into some trouble for that a couple years ago.
No, just rowing boats.
Just rowing boats.
So, yeah, let's keep people in their jobs.
What did the cartel recently overindulge in high school sports down in IMG Academy, right? That was great. The subtweet under it underneath, and I mean this in the nicest of ways, someone goes, well, everybody needs a $1.7 million track and field team. It's super good. Ryan, one of the things that we've started, we've done it a couple times in the past, but fans recently seem to take to it. We do rapid fire to close. Pretty easy, pretty quick. One line, right off the top of the dome. First one's easy. Favorite new clothing purchase from our favorite clothier, Paisley and Gray. Got anything new in the wardrobe?
I do. I got like a checkered jacket that I'll, when it gets a little warmer, I'll be wearing.
That a boy. Still going with their hats, too.
Great place, by the way.
Great place. Love them so much. This is a difficult one, the way I'm going to phrase it. There's a national championship at Wake. There's the Cincinnati roster that did ridiculous things for years to come based upon what you and John built. The homegrowns, for me, one of my personal favorites, all the young players that you push into the pro ranks and how you've affected them. Do you have a most fulfilling accomplishment in your career so far?
That's a really good question.
Only one I got.
Honestly, probably the Loudoun one last year. Making the playoffs with Loudoun last year was incredible. I mean, winning the national championship was awesome at Wake, and the Final Fours were great. And playing Crystal Palace in front of 30,000 people since he was incredible, and the homegrowns. But to get to last year we were I think in history, I looked it up on ChatGPT, the only team in the history of professional sports to make a postseason with 4 GMs in one season. And we did it last season, and so when you go through adversity and different things, and you have a collective group that just didn't back down, it was incredible. And more importantly, the bonds, that I created, the amount of texts I've gotten in the last week from all those guys, even the ones that aren't here, is incredible. And I think we're going to have lifelong, conversations with that group.
Favorite manager to coach against?
Favorite manager to coach against? Probably Danny Cruz. I always enjoy going against Danny. When you play the top teams, it allows you to to really test yourself and where you go. I used to love going against Bob Lilly as well. Bob was a legend in this game for me, and a lot of what he did. So, that was always a good one there. And, you'd learn, I try to pick his brain after the game and see what he's doing. So those are probably two of my favorite.
Best crabs in the Maryland, D.C. area?
Best crabs, I'd say, we'd always go to like Annapolis. So we'd go to Chop Tank in Annapolis. Chop Tank Annapolis. So if you ever get up there to go see John Hackworth at Navy, Chop Tank.
We'll put that in the back pocket. Favorite player to watch, either one of your own players or an opposing player that you faced?
In the league?
Could be outside the league.
Favorite player to watch. Who do I really like to watch? Was obviously great question.
That's 2, Watts. Write it down.
I mean, I always used to like Tony Cruz as a top player internationally. Like, I like that type of midfielder that can break the game. I like guys that can open the game up. I like Mukhtar, if you're looking at the MLS. Like, he's fun to watch for me. I quite enjoy him and what he can bring to the game. And then there's a lot of guys in the USL that have always been quite good. Whether it's Tuku at San Antonio, I've always quite liked. Blanco, when he was in Miami last year, I really just enjoyed watching his movement. Even though he's a little bit older, I really enjoyed what he could do still and when he could play. I'm not going to name any of my players because then I'd single out one or two, and someone would be upset at me.
You're
So
good.
Good man.
We talk about the positives. We talk about growth. Biggest regret as a coach could be an in-game decision, a move you made on a player. Biggest regret in your career.
biggest regret I have is
Taking this interview.
taking this question. Not to be honest with you, I don't really have any regrets that I've made. I've made bad decisions throughout the course of my career. I don't think one's maybe worse than another, but I've learned through them all, and I think that's where I've always taken it. So even if I've made a really bad decision and was like, oh wow, that was a disaster. I've always looked at it as, okay, well, it's an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to learn, and an opportunity to be better. And if you would have asked me in 2015 what did I want to do, is I would have been a college soccer coach probably, and here I am after an academy director in an MLS, worked in Columbus Crew, FC Cincinnati, DC United, Oakland Roots, Loudoun. It's been an incredible journey. I wouldn't have predicted all this, so for me, I've just been blessed with the journey. Really, it's been incredible.
Well stated. Last one, fun one. Marlon LeBlanc had a little fun with it last week. You could coach one other team in the championship. Who would it be and why?
What'd Marlon say?
Marlon said Louisville because he talked about the budget, and he said he had never been in a club where the decision making and the finances to back it were really within his reach. He was really excited about his project, but it wasn't a big budget club at this point in time, so he leaned on Louisville.
Say Loudoun. Do it.
Yeah, not going to do that one. Yeah, it'd probably be what I'm going to do, I'm going to throw a wild card at you for my in-laws, but it would be the Vermont Green. I'd go USL 2 Vermont.
Oh, look at that.
That's my in-laws are diehard season ticket holders. They were two of the 10,000 people that put in for tickets for the game against Portland. They got them. They did not get tickets for the women's league this year. They tried. They didn't get the lottery tickets, but they would be the happiest two people. And especially since my wife and I and our son moved cross country from Burlington, Vermont, Vermont Green would be it.
Love that.
Love it.
Watts, I didn't see that one coming. That's great.
No.
They got an awesome following there.
Oh, incredible. Yeah. And we've been my wife and I went to like a UVM game, and we've seen a bunch of stuff, but like they raced home from a biking trip to get to the final last year of the USL 2. And so I get texts now about Vermont Green players when they're available. And so I hear from my mother-in-law, hey, so-and-so's available. Like recently one just signed with Orange County. Hey, so-and-so's available. It might be worth your time.
Pizzini. Yep.
Yeah. Who's a great player,
Great
and
player.
good pickup for Orange County. But I'm always the first to hear about anybody coming from Vermont Green. But no, I'm happy in Oakland in terms of championship. But for my in-laws, Vermont Green.
Love it. That's Ryan Martin, head coach at Oakland, and very happy to be in Oakland. We are back to take a look forward to the coming week in just a moment here on USL All Access.
Welcome back to USL All Access on Sirius XM FC with Mike Watts and Devon Kerr.
Welcome back, everybody. USL All Access. We get you ready for match day 2 real quick. Now, the degenerate game of the week is a noon Wednesday game between Birmingham and Hartford, if you're into that kind of thing. But, Dev, if you're not, a game that you don't want to miss, I'm going to go with Lexington, Sacramento. That's Saturday, 7 p.m. Sac, obviously, great start to the year. Lexington, they showed good things. Can they carry it forward at home?
I'll take the Orange County Phoenix game. They average about 2.5 goals a game. There's certainly some interesting background there between Danny Stone and Phoenix Rising. These teams have always gone back and forth. Orange County trying to seek out their attack. Phoenix trying to seek out their back line. Bazzini had just come into Orange County. Didn't see enough for Orange County on the weekend against Vegas. And Charlie Dennis was unavailable for Phoenix. Rafa Shihos, Vukovic has come in. I believe in the journey but both of these teams are on. But I think it'll be interesting to balance what your template looks like compared to the emotional side that the game gives you.
All right, Dev, did you learn anything this week?
No. I learned got clothes from when I was 9.
Yeah, I learned a ton about Ryan Martin's dad, and I love that. That was my favorite part of the interview. All right, when we see you next week, most teams will be 2 games into the season. They'll all be coming into picture. For Devin, our entire Sirius team, Mike Watts saying, have a good week, everybody.
This is USL All Access. If you missed any portion of the program, listen back anytime on the SXM app.